What's up, gamers? A bunch of you guys have asked for a video going over Fashion Dreamer, so here it is. Though I won't be discussing the game as in-depth as possible, as I'd like to bring something new to the table that hasn't been spoken about by other people already. Speaking of, there are some really cool videos made by others that are a lot more specific on topics I mention here, or are just cool in general, so I recommend you use the links in the description to see those, as well as searching for Fashion Dreamer in your own time if you're interested. As for me, however, I'd like to talk about Fashion Dreamer's potential, as well as its potential flaws, from the perspective of someone who really didn't know much about the game until looking into the Star Boutique series as a whole, like a long impressions video. When Fashion Dreamer was announced in February's Nintendo Direct, I was both confused and excited. This looked similar to the Star Boutique series, but I didn't see Sin Sophia, the developer of Star Boutique, anywhere, so I was unsure if this was some sort of bland rip-off or not. Then I saw the trailer for Tears of the Kingdom and forgot all about it. That is, until I researched for my Star Boutique video. Turns out, the game is being developed by Sin Sophia. It just wasn't made very clear, which is a little bit annoying. The developer's last entry into the Star Boutique series was Styling Star, which released in late 2017, and it never really had a fighting chance to begin with. The Switch had released 9 months prior, and interest in the series as a whole was possibly dwindling, as the game only had a digital release in North America, as well as being stuck with a British English localization. Which is great for me, and I'll always love Nintendo UK for localizing games that America doesn't. Take Xenoblade Chronicles, for example.
I know I look young, but I'm actually quite old.
But this wasn't exactly a good sign for the Star Boutique series. Sin Sophia would go on to develop a couple arcade-exclusive games after 2017, and that was it. Until 2023. The first difference with Fashion Dreamer from the Star Boutique series is that it isn't being published by Nintendo. Apparently they refused to work on the game, which, while being a shame, is also somewhat expected. Nintendo can be really stupid when it wants to, even if Star Boutique wasn't the most popular series. Instead, the game is being published by Marvelous, a company which has previously published a bunch of Rune Factory and No More Heroes games. It's also being localized by Xseed Games, an American division of Marvelous, which is why that name popped up during the announcement trailer. My impressions of the game are conflicted, to say the least. There is a lot I'd want to say, but I'll try to condense my thoughts. First though, a synopsis of what the game is. The game is set in a virtual world named Eve, which is split into 4 sections, or cocoons, each with their own aesthetic. There's hope, fun, act, and love. The place is filled with other characters, called muses, and your aim is to become a top fashion influencer, raking in likes through a social media-esque system, where you explore, meet other muses, and like their outfits. This will, in turn, allow you to use their clothing items, unlock things like hairstyles, and even earn in-game currency. You even have unlimited inventory space! Yay! You'll also be able to design outfits, referred to as lookits, for other people if they're in need of help, which is somewhat similar to Star Boutique's central gameplay mechanic. You can even create your own brand, advertise it in showrooms, and make custom items using an in-depth system with over 1,400 patterns and millions of colour combinations. There's an option to play online, which allows you to interact with other muses worldwide, or play offline with NPCs. It sounds interesting, but there is definitely a heavy focus on communication in this game, something we've never seen this front and centre in the Star Boutique series. This isn't Star Boutique though. It's allowed to be different, even if it appeals to me a little bit less. I mean, it's labelled first and foremost as a communication game. Let's start with the potential of this game. I mean, first of all, there are a ton of improvements here when compared to Star Boutique. You can play as a man, which also hopefully means no gendered pronouns Animal Crossing style. Speaking of, technically you aren't a man or a woman, but Type A and Type B, with different height selections. While it's nice to have no labelled gender and more variety in body heights, there's still a lack of variety in actual body shape. You can also play as 4 different muses, which is nice if you want to change styles or your appearance really quickly. It adds a nice element of freedom, not being tied to one character. There's a ton of variety in skin tones thanks to the colour slider system, which also allows for a lot more customization when it comes to the colours of clothes. And with the large number of patterns to choose from, you can barely tell the difference between custom and non-custom now, which was a big issue for me in the Star Boutique series. The look-at mechanic is basically a slightly altered version of Star Boutique's central mechanic, minus the risk and reward. I'll never forget you. But it looks better than I expected. Muses will have items on their wish lists and favourite colours, etc. that you can include in the look-its you make for them for likes and bonuses, which include E-points, gacha tickets and bingo tickets. E-points can be used for making custom clothes, while gacha and bingo tickets are used at their respective machines to get more fashion items. The more look-its you create for a muse, the more affinity you have with them, which unlock new makeup, hairstyles and poses. There seems to be a trend forecast guy, which means you can follow trends in this game. Woo! You'll likely get bonus points for that too. Other people can like your look-its, which will help you level up and give you more likes, which you can then convert into E-points. NPCs potentially have similar quirks to those in Style Boutique, like this muse who's fighting with their sister, or this one who says,
"How we doing, fam?"
I can only wish that NPC muses have some sort of relationship with each other, as in like how some characters in Style Boutique were siblings or friends with other characters. Taking pictures is much more refined with a drone camera. You can tuck and untuck shirts, which is a small detail which makes a lot of difference. This game has a leveling up system, which, while I'm usually not the biggest fan of, I can understand how it makes sense for this game. The art style is nice, clean, and much better than Styling Star in my humble opinion. Makeup and hair options are also much more varied than ever before. And of course, the clothes are neat. Things like earrings can have a lot more detail now. I like the fact that you're able to walk around and explore areas, or cocoons as they call them. It seems like there's a central hub in Eve where all 4 cocoons can join, as well as subway stations to take you from one section to another. It's clear to see that this world has a ton of life put into it. I mean, look at this mall. There's a bar, cafe, working vending machines, and there's so many layers to it as well. But some of these things can serve as a bit of a double-edged sword. The colour palette for this game is really nice from an artistic point of view, with a sort of cel-shaded style. However, when it comes to a game where the central point is fashion, I feel like a lot of the clothes end up looking like they lack texture, and that they feel a little samey despite the effort put into including a variety of styles. Speaking of, even the styles in this game seem to be a bit of a step back from Style Boutique. Most fall into a more minimal style, which makes sense as that is popular in Japan. However, there just doesn't seem like there's enough to make each style pop and feel really distinct and timeless. Where is my crusty looking animal print? My furry leg warmers? I miss those in-game staple brands. I don't know if they exist in Eve or if clothing items just sort of show up. I'm also skeptical on the whole, you just get any piece of clothing you like. It sounds crazy, and I wish that's how it worked in real life, but I don't know. There's also all the different kinds of in-game currency for all the different gimmicks, and it's all a little bit confusing to be honest. Speaking of, this brings me to my biggest concern for Fashion Dreamer as a whole. I think Fashion Dreamer is more of a fashion game than a fashion game like Style Boutique. For example, let's just say, hypothetically, and in theory, that I replaced every character in Style Boutique with a piece of tofu, and instead of clothes you sell different flavours of Bitcoin. Would the gameplay loop still be enjoyable? I'd think so, as boring as tofu and Bitcoin might be. It's just that Style Boutique is built on a very unique and strong foundation, so much so that if you stripped away the fashion element, it would still be a largely enjoyable game. Whereas in Fashion Dreamer, I feel like the game is somewhat reliant on the fact that fashion and being an influencer is the central premise. It feels less like a game and more like a weird social media app with game-like gimmicks, which is a totally fine idea, but for me, the game's appeal just feels a lot weaker. And that's frustrating to me because you can see that Sophia has such a passion for both fashion and games, and Fashion Dreamer just doesn't seem like everything meshes together as satisfyingly as Style Boutique. Style Boutique has a clear central area that's key to progression, the shop, or shops depending on which game you play. It's where you meet characters, earn money and drive the plot forward, whether that's winning fashion contests, running fashion shows, or helping others attain stardom. You go back and forth between selling clothes, buying clothes, and getting better at what you do in a really satisfying loop which goes on for as long as you want it to. With Fashion Dreamer, however, I think it's supposed to be centered around interacting with other muses, but it just kind of feels all over the place. You can get clothes by liking other people's clothes, and if people like your clothes, you can convert those likes into E-points, but you can also earn clothes using a gacha machine or by playing bingo, and also muses can give you those bingo and gacha tickets, and also there's 4 different places to go to, but I don't really know why, and... You see what I'm getting at? I just can't see a clear gameplay loop, or necessarily the strongest foundation. I do hope that the game will prove me wrong though, as the West hasn't provided a lot of information in the game in comparison to Japan, so maybe I have absolutely no idea about the importance of things that I don't really like at the moment. I hated Styling Star the first time I played it in 2017, but now I love it. And while I will certainly miss owning my own boutique, meeting NPCs and the like, maybe it has something to do with not working with Nintendo anymore and the fact that Star Boutique is still their IP. Though I have no clue because I'm just like speculating with zero legal knowledge. Also, while the idea of having both an online and offline mode is really great to have, I worry that it might have something to do with... From what I've seen, the dreaded... hasn't been confirmed to be necessary to access the online mode for Fashion Dreamer, but usually it's only free-to-play games that are exempt from it. I'm hoping the absence of the logo is a good sign, but if not, all I can say is, frick you Nintendo, I used to play Splatoon 2 religiously and for free! I didn't want to sound overly negative in this video because if you really like the look of Fashion Dreamer and are really excited for it, then yes! I'm still curious about the game myself because I know that Sophia are really good at what they do. There is a bunch of potential and I want to give it a chance, if not by buying the game, at least by talking about it. I really want to support the developers behind Fashion Dreamer because this might be our last chance to get a spiritual successor to the Star Boutique series, or just a decent fashion game in general, which the Switch has been sorely lacking in. Unlike the farming sims. But there are just some things that concern me, and I've seen similar concerns voiced by some of you too. I think you should still get the game to support Sophia, and because, despite my potentially harsh criticism of the game, I think it will be fun. There's no pressure of course, and I'm still debating it myself obviously, and also won't be getting it on launch day because I have to wait till it's Merry Crimbles. But if you want to pre-order the game right now and get some cool bonus DLC, there's a link in the description. I should be getting paid for this. I think a point worth mentioning here is that, unlike Styling Star, this game is being set for success in a lot of ways, even if the West isn't getting a lot of coverage on it. In Japan, there's the Twitter, the Instagram account, the adverts, and most importantly, the November release date. If you want your game to sell, let me tell you, you'd sell that shit in November. Capitalize off those Christmas sales. It's good to know that whoever's publishing this actually wants it to do well, it seems, unlike Nintendo with Styling Star. And I sincerely hope it does do well. But that's the end of another video. Don't forget to look in the description for Don't forget to look in the description for extra information on the game. And if you're interested in the Star Boutique series, then check out my other videos on it. Okay, thanks for watching, lol. Bye. Bye!